I'm here outside the Mezquita de Granada, a mosque located in Granada's historical Albaicin district. Granada has a rich religious history dating back over 1,000 years, and Islam especially has had a deep influence on the region's language, architecture, and culture. Despite this influence, however, Muslims across Granada and throughout Spain's Andalusia region face discrimination due to their faith and way of life. These are the mosque's public gardens. If you use your mouse to explore, you can see views of the Alhambra Palace and the Sierra Nevada mountains. About 1.5 million people visit the gardens each year, and the mosque itself is the largest space of worship available to the region's approximately 10,000 Muslims, though not all use the space. A group that included both migrants and ethnically Spanish Muslims came together in the 1980s to found the mosque. What followed, though, was over 20 years of struggle. The slow progress was the result of a lack of financing and intense community pushback to the mosque, which was rooted in misconceptions about their religion. Ultimately, the Albaicin district's first mosque in over 500 years was able to open in the summer of 2003, with most of the $4.5 million needed coming from the United Arab Emirates, Libya, and Morocco. Despite the mosque being open for over a decade now, the process of prayer and other rituals in Islam is something many outsiders are still unfamiliar with, which contributes to those misconceptions. Here, Umar Farouk, who leads the call to prayer, goes through the process of prayer, beginning with the wudu. Zacharias Lopez Rejon, an employee at the mosque, explains the ritual.
The wudu is basically a purification of our body, let's say, which we have to take it before we enter to the mosque, or before we're going to pray, or we're going to read the Quran.
Purity is a key tenet of Islam, making the wudu an important ritual. Without the wudu, residue from daily tasks like handling money or going to the bathroom would otherwise invalidate your prayer. After the wudu, Umar heads to the top of the minaret where he does the call to prayer. Prayer is one of the most important of Islam's 5 pillars, with the Quran prescribing Muslims to pray 5 times a day. The first prayer is just before sunrise, with the last prayer coming in the time between sunset and midnight. Typically, practitioners follow the position of the sun to know when to pray, but many people today take advantage of apps like Muslim Pro. This is the view from the minaret where Umar does the call. The call to prayer has a pretty simple meaning. It translates essentially to Allah, or God, is the greatest, and Muhammad is his last messenger. Come to prayer, come to happiness. Again, here is Zachariah Lopez Rejon telling the story of Bilal, the first man to give the call to prayer.
There is a story of the Prophet, which he asked Bilal, which was a new Muslim. He was the Muqaddim. The Prophet asked him to be the Muqaddim, and he told him to go on and give the Adhan. And he asked him to go on the highest part of the Kaaba, and he basically jumped on top of the Kaaba and gave the Adhan, and everyone could hear him. So we could say that's why we have a minaret too, because we need a higher level to give the Adhan.
أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة.
This is the scene back inside the mosque after the call to prayer. The practitioners are praying in front of the mihrab, which points them toward Mecca, the holiest city in Islam. The prayer typically lasts for about 5 minutes and is led by the imam, who is at the front of the room. Prayer in Islam is an act of submission to God, making cleanliness extremely important. As a result, shoes are not allowed inside the mosque, and mosques typically feature carpeting to protect practitioners from the floor. One thing to note is the absence of women in the main prayer space. If you rotate your screens to the left, you'll notice a partition behind which the women of the mosque pray. Zacharias explains why.
We pray separately because you have to be focused while you pray, and of course everyone knows, and we know that there is an in between men and women there is an attraction, natural attraction. So that's why we pray separately, so we can be focused on what we are doing.
Hisham Malara coordinates programming at the mosque. He says that the presence of a dignified physical space to worship is important to his community for multiple reasons. Though Spain is a Christian majority nation, he believes it's key for everyone to feel comfortable practicing their religion in the country. Hisham pointed out that while Christians grow up taking religious classes in school and have large public celebrations of their faith like Easter, growing up as a Muslim meant having to practice your religion outside of the mainstream eye, even if you and your family were ethnically Spanish. Here he is, recounting a story from his childhood.
And why is it important? Because just for the for the mentality and for the psychology and the growth of the coming generations. I'll be honest with you. You know, if you grow up and your father just forces you have to go to pray, and the place you have to go and pray is the garage of so and so that lives 10 kilometers away from the city, and that's your place of worship. What are you going to think about your religion? Right. The context of all of that. You know, you feel like a second-class citizen.
The mosque is more than just a place for prayer, however. La Mezquita Mayor de Granada frequently holds events in its cultural center, like this one hosted by Adam Williamson, an artist from London, for a group of students from Agnes Scott College in Georgia. On this day, he was teaching the students how to make an 8-fold rosette, a staple of Moorish tradition. For some, it was their first time entering a mosque, but many said the mosque employees immediately made them feel welcome and comfortable. On the outside, however, some of those same mosque employees still face negativity or blatant discrimination because of their faith. Those who work at the mosque, like Hisham, say that in some part, this is the result of people fearing the unknown and not thinking for themselves. To change that, Hisham says that people simply have to be open to education about Islam and its values. Adam travels the world teaching art classes and has been to mosques across multiple continents. In his mind, the easiest way for people to educate themselves and truly understand what goes on in a mosque is to simply walk inside.